Hey there guys, my name is Edco, if you didn't remember, and I'm going to start by talking about something a little bit older than where Heather started. She started with the causes of World War II, which she kicked off in the 1930s. I'm going to go way back. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go all the way back. I'm going to go to the birth of democracy, the start of the political system we call home. Well, most of us do. We tend to take for granted that we live in a fully democratic society. We get to choose who represents us, and sometimes we don't always like them, like Canada's Stephen Harper. And sometimes we catch them eating corn dogs inappropriately, like Michelle Bachmann. But in essence, the population gets to choose their governing official. For most of human history, that wasn't the case. In 6th century BC, ancient Athens planted the seeds of democracy as we know it today. Before that, the cities or countries or whatever you wanted to call them, in that case it was the polis, the city-state, was run by the richest member of society, the aristocrats or the nobility. And if they wanted to tax people, they taxed people. And if they wanted everyone to wear pink feathers and dye their hair blue, everybody wore pink feathers and dyed their hair blue. In the year 594 BCE, Solon was appointed head of the aristocratic council, the magister, or as we would call it today, the magistrate. And he was a real forward thinker. He wanted to take things in a very new direction in Athens. He only had that power for 1 year, but in only the first few months he pushed some really forward laws. He punished some of the abusive lords who were abusing their peasants, I guess you would call them. He reorganized the social classes to get more social class people involved in government, and he abolished some of the slavery laws that were really abusive at the time. He wasn't exactly championing democracy, since still only the richer half of society was allowed in, but it's better than the 1% of the society that had any involvement before. After his term as magister ends, he decides he wants to go on a traveling expedition and see the rest of the known world. He leaves. Within 10 years of his departure, Athens had forgotten everything he taught them. Now the aristocracy is busy abusing the rest of the world, but the idea of democracy is there. The idea of fair representation has been planted in the minds of the citizens, and they're not giving up so fast. In 542 BCE, after a bunch of abuse and a bunch of all kinds of other things, the common people fight. And they fight hard, and they win. This begins the birth of democracy from two Greek words, demos and kratos. Demos means the people, the common person, and kratos means authority. So together, the authority of the people. They organized a general citizens' assembly, which any citizen is allowed to attend, and that's males over the age of 18. As well, they split Athens and the greater Athens area into 10 separate provinces called tribes, and each tribe was allowed to elect 5 officials to make up the Council of the 500, which was a legislative governing body. The system was far from perfect because of travel distance for people in the further tribes who didn't want to make it all the way to Athens for every general assembly, who didn't have a vote, because of membership rules and things like aristocrats being able to buy votes. But it's a start, and it's the first democratic system we have. The idea of the common person now had a forum, and that meant the common person could start running for a political office. You had to be elected to be part of the Council of 500, and that meant the common person now needed to be educated. This alone changed the entire dynamic of Athenian society. While the majority of the economy was still based on farming and agriculture, the Athenian legacy is left to us in the form of literature and philosophy and all that culture, and that's because people started getting smart. That's mostly true because within Athens, the major city where all the politicians would sit, the upper class and working class, the main trade wasn't jewelry, it wasn't weaponry like it used to be. Yeah, those were important and people liked to buy pretty things, but the main trade of Athenian society became ideas. Yeah, you could become famous by being a good goldsmith, but now you could become famous for being good at thinking. Socrates was the world's first IRL troll, basically a hobo walking around in rags, going up to the richest and most powerful people in society and asking them really intrusive questions about their specialty. And a lot of the time, he proved them wrong, and that's what made him famous. We still think a little bit like Plato. Our plays are still influenced by Sophocles' themes, and Aristarchus was the first to propose that the Earth rotates around the sun, before even Copernicus or Galileo would have a chance. They had art, poetry, and literature that we still read to this day, because democracy gave the common person a reason to learn. And the Athenians would stay at the top of that cultural ladder all the way until the Renaissance, when the Renaissance people would use the Greeks to become good. The Greeks were an amazing period, and the Renaissance as good because they went back to the Greeks. And in the Middle Ages, the space in between, the reason we went into kind of dark ages is because kings removed the power of the common person. And then by removing the power of the common person, they removed their desire to learn and their need to learn. So democracy has this power to give the common person a voice and give the common person a reason to learn, and that makes the society work in so much more of a cohesive and intellectual way, which really shaped how advanced we are today. Athens opened doors, literally. They opened the doors to their government to the common person. By opening that up, they became a society that we admire to this day, and that we try to emulate to this day every time we elect someone into our government. I think I've done my spiel. Heather, I'll see you next week for another period in history.